Metro on WDET. I'm Tia Graham. For those who know, tomorrow is Halloween, and your spooky soundtrack to the evening is airing right here on WDET at 6 p.m. Jon Moshier is the host of Modern Music here on WDET, and his annual Halloween special is a tradition that pairs perfectly with handing out candy for trick-or-treaters. The Metro's David Leins dug into the creepy crates of Halloween music with Jon. He started by asking about this annual Halloween special and how it got started in the first place.
Originally, way back, we have to go back to the late 90s when I was on overnight, Saturday nights, midnight to 5 in the morning. And various hosts would do Halloween-themed specials, and I did one. It was also normally a 5-hour show, but it was always on that week where daylight savings time ended, so I had a 6-hour show. So I would expand the Halloween special to include, contemporary stuff that somehow fit into a spooky theme, and I would throw in some novelty music, and then I always aired radio theater, Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater, War of the Worlds, or something like that. Donovan's Brain, which was also Mercury Theater, or I used to play the suspense version starring Orson Welles, was a big one. So it was always a really big show. And as I started to collect things, I really got into this world of novelty music. And we're talking about sort of the height of novelty music, horror-themed novelty music. Maybe the mid-50s through the mid-60s was kind of the prime time for that stuff. And I started collecting. And I also started collecting sound effects records. Those records they put out in primarily the mid to late 60s through the 70s, maybe a little bit into the 80s. Pickwick Records did a bunch. Disney Records did a bunch. You've probably seen the chilling, thrilling sounds of the haunted house. That's a ubiquitous one that you've seen all over. When I was a kid, I had one that was called Sounds to Make You Shiver. And that was the one that really kind of changed everything for me. I used to play it out of my parents' house, growing up on speakers. And it was the sound effects record that set the scene for Halloween. So I started collecting all this stuff and realizing that there's a wealth of material in really obscure novelty music, garage rock, rockabilly. And when I got brought back to DET back, 15, 16 years ago, I brought the Halloween show back. Well, now it's in a 2-hour sort of distilled mix. And so I really focus on the novelty music. It's not contemporary so much. And I think that sets a scene that I really like, that sort of vintage 50s, 60s garage rock, rockabilly kind of surf music feel. And of course, I incorporate all these sound effects records. And really what it is to me is sharing my collection of this stuff, but it's also an homage to what I grew up with local television radio horror hosts like Sir Graves Ghastly or The Ghoul and, people like that and radio theater that really affected me. I want to immerse myself and immerse the listeners in an experience that kind of sets the mood for Halloween and puts us in a particular time period and a particular feel.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a time capsule into this time where I think it really stands out that a lot of these classic novelty spooky tracks that you put into this special every year, I don't know, it sounds like they are from a certain era where there was like a heyday of Halloween, not just music, but I wonder if there was if you can inform us on, was this kind of a pop culture moment for Halloween and spooky stuff in film and music and entertainment?
Yeah, I think it was. And I think, look, there are people that have studied this that are a lot smarter than I am. But if you look at what was going on in the country, in the mid-50s through the mid-60s, there was kind of this resurgence of science fiction horror. We were scared of invaders. We were scared of, there was the Red Scare, and we were afraid of invaders coming from the Soviet Union, right? And so that translated into Martian invaders and all things, the Monster Kid generation, all things horror and scary and the Universal monsters were really big. And so, I think there was a culture that enabled this stuff to happen. And I think we focused a lot of our fears into science fiction, into, novelty music, into horror movies and things like that. And so, there was this big period between, like I said, mainly not specifically, but mainly the mid-50s through the mid to late 60s.
Mm-hmm. What are some of those novelty tracks that are included in this year's special?
Okay, well, I'll share one with you that I think is really kind of funny. It's a song called The Gorilla from 1958. And interestingly enough, this was Bert Convy. Now, you may not, if I showed you a picture of him, you'd go, oh, that guy. He was an actor, he was a singer, he was a game show host. If you ever watched or heard of the game show Tattletales or Super Password or Win, Lose, or Draw, he was the host of that game show. I remember him, he was kind of ubiquitous all over television in the 1970s. Well, back in 1958, he joined this sort of movement in doing these novelty horror songs. And this is Bert Convy and a song called The Gorilla.
We were out of school with nothing to do, so we jumped in my car and we went to the zoo. Having lots of fun just walking around, looking in the cages when I heard a funny sound. Somebody yelled and one began to shout. I turned around and my eyes bugged out. He's out of his cage! He's on a rampage!
He's on a rampage.
There's something really silly about that, and that kind of reminds me of a lot of the selections that you have in this special. Is like, it's not really all going to be raising the hair on your neck, making you scared. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's light. And if Bert Convy, he was a celebrity, and he puts out this single, The Gorilla, and it's a silly song about a gorilla. What does that tell us about pop music and celebrity back then compared to now?
You know, I think back then music, popular music was certainly simpler. And I think, you know, this was a time when people were open to these sort of schlocky, kind of campy novelty songs, you know? And look, you know, you had horror, multiple picture drive-in double features at drive-ins, and you know, you had, as I was saying earlier, people like Sir Graves Ghastly here in Detroit, and they were all over the country, these horror movie hosts that were dressing up as vampires, and they had all sorts of effects and a great set, and they would present a horror movie on a Saturday afternoon, and we were into it, you know, and so everyone, all of these artists, big and small, many of them very obscure, and maybe they only put out a couple of records, some really big artists, really got into this whole world of putting together these fun novelty songs that were in this sort of horror genre. But yeah, they're often very campy, very silly, but very, very fun.
Mm-hmm. Very fun. What else are we having fun with?
Well, you know what I love to do with the show, too, is throw in old movie trailers. And these aren't so much trailers some of them are trailers in the traditional sense, but I don't play any contemporary stuff for the most part. I might go as far as, you know, like Evil Dead or Dawn of the Dead or something like that. But I love these old, they were particularly made for radio spots for these horror picture shows or spook shows, as they called them, at big drive-in theaters where they would play, you know, 2 or 3 or 4 really schlocky B-movie horror films. And so I love interspersing those in the show because I think those are really, really fun to listen to. And I brought a couple of those for you as well. There's one that's, we're going, again, back into the 1950s. So this will fit right in with that Bert Convy Gorilla song. It's the Blood-O-Rama Shock Fest.
Are you ready for more than 4 hours of blood-drenched, chill-crammed terror? See the Blood-O-Rama Shock Festival, if you're not afraid of being scared out of your wits.
Bloodletting, gory color.
Yeah, I mean, because color film was still relatively new at the time.
Yeah, especially bloodletting.
Yeah, I mean,
gory color.
Yeah, the people screaming and whatever else was going on in the background there was funny.
I love that stuff. So yeah, this and then this year, I found something. I don't know that I've aired this before. Maybe I have, but we'll jump up into the 1970s. And here is, even in on the island of Jamaica, they got in on the action in the early 1970s. I've had a hard time finding much information about this, so I'm not exactly sure who the artists were behind this, but they called themselves Vincent Price and the Young Spirits. And it's an obscure tune from Jamaica called Sound from the Graveyard from sometime in the early 1970s. And this is real fun.
My name is Vincent Price. 'cause I learn, and I learn from the wise. My name is Vincent Price. Come on, hit me back, Jack, with all you got. Sound from the graveyard. This is a theater of drama. Vincent Price.
It is great. I mean, it's like it's like King Tubby, but Halloweeny and scary. That's cool. Kind of that dub reverb echo in there is like so fitting for something that's supposed to be spooky.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, what else? What else do we got this special?
Well, this special, there was something new that came this year, part of Big Stir Records. Now, I was mentioning that ubiquitous Disney release, originally from the 60s. Then they reissued this thing in the 70s through the 80s, Chilling, Thrilling Sounds of the Haunted House. You've seen it all over the place. Well, they did a compilation new this year, and they used the artwork from that ubiquitous album, and it's called Chilling, Thrilling Hooks and Haunted Harmonies, the Big Stir Records Halloween Grimoire? I don't know what that word is. Anyway, it's a triple vinyl, quadruple vinyl. And no, that would be a double vinyl, John.
There's four sides.
Yeah, 4 sides. It's a double vinyl. And when you open it up, there's a board game that you can play with all of the artists that are on the record. And so it's a really cool package. And they included a track from a Detroit-based band, the Incurables. So I'm featuring this on the show. It's a tune called Halloween Bride from Detroit's own The Incurables.
Oh, cool. All right, let's hear it. We've gone from Bert Convy, and then we've gone to Jamaica in the 70s, and here we are in Detroit, and that definitely has the Detroit rock garage sound that we've all kind of grown up with and just know in our it's pulsing through our veins, even on Halloween.
And it's nice to see that people are still making this stuff. There are various Detroit bands that I feature on the show, and to see people still making fun novelty songs for Halloween is great. This year I saw a lot of old, obscure compilations get reissued. So a handful of record labels are reissuing a whole bunch of classic Halloween records, which is really, really great. So, yeah, this stuff is kind of coming back in a little way.
Why? Why do you think that is?
I don't know exactly. I think, it's hard for me to say because I'm a kid who always loved Halloween and I never let go of it. I decorate the house and I have fog machines going and we hand out candy to the kids and I do this radio show. And so I'm just immersed in it. I absolutely love it. But I think, there's always been interest in the sort of garage rock scene and retro rock and people are always collecting, hard to find records and things. And some of this stuff is getting attention again. And I just think it's great.
Jon Mosier's Halloween show is this Friday, Halloween, from 6 to 8 p.m., just in time for trick or treating. And Modern Music with Jon Moshier is on WDET Saturdays from 4 to 6 p.m. and Tuesdays at 10 p.m.
This is your radio drama. I am what I am. And my name is Vincent Price. You better listen to my advice, 'cause I learn, and I learn from the wise. My name is Vincent Price. Come on.
And maybe you tuned in a little late to this conversation and you're thinking to myself, what is this music on the Metro right now? Well, you can listen back to any conversations you've heard on the Metro or share it with a friend. Every single conversation that we have is available on the Metro's podcast, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. And you can follow, subscribe, and leave us a rating or a review. Metro is produced by Sam Corey, Carrie Jr. II, and Jack Phil Brantz, Robin Vincent, and me, Tia Graham. Our engineer is Nate Bender, music by Sam Bobian, and our senior producer is David Lyons, who just gave us those groovy tunes. The Metro is a production of WDET, a listener-supported service of Wayne State University, and this is WDET-FM, Detroit Public Radio, your connection to news, music, and conversation. You all have a great day and a spooky Halloween.